Hello, hello, Sport Beach. How are you
Good
doing?
morning!
Day number
Stagwell 2! Sport Beach!
Yeah, what's
Come
up,
on,
everybody?
wake up! Wake up! 1 second, 1 second. Obviously, too many of you were at the Gutter Bar last night. Stand up, quick!
Yeah, too
Stand
much
up,
rosé
everybody.
here in
Up,
France.
up, up.
Let's go. Little
Up, up.
energy. Day 2 of
Come
Sport
on,
Beach.
we're
How we
gonna do
feeling?
Take 2. Shake it out. Shake out the hangover. Shake out the rosé. No, you got to stand up and do it, honey. That's a crap. Let's go. One more time. Good morning, Stagwell Sport Beach.
Let's go.
All right. So we got to get this back. The guy just walked by and I took it. So we just got to make sure that they get it because they're just kind of waiting here for it. This is an Olympic torch. It's unbelievable. And it's a symbol of all of the energy that's here. You can all sit down. It's okay. Cool. Go for it.
And
So let me give you a weather report because I think it's really important. I want you to know what's going on in the world. New York. How many people here from New York?
let's go.
Air quality. Terrible. Alert. Hot and sticky. London. Who's from London? Cloudy. Dubai. Who's from Dubai? Nobody? It's brutal. Trust me. Melbourne. It's cold. Paris. Rain. Sport Beach, my friends. It's cool. It's hot. And it's exploding with energy. In fact, all of the energy from this beach, from beginning to end, is coming down in a vortex right here to you. So we thank you for being here. We thank you for coming. And the energy you're adding to it, it is only going to get bigger and better, and we have a great day for you.
That is an
incredible
understatement.
Day, Ben,
That
right?
is an understatement. We have an incredible day of speakers, of panels. Be sure to check out the Olympic torches that are sitting over there on the side of the beach. We have an awesome lineup planned for you for day 2 of Sport Beach. Big shout out to Stagwell for putting this whole thing on. Let's make some noise for our friends at Stagwell for hosting us here at Cannes Lions once again, year number 2. So originally there had been some talks of doing a NightCap Live, a recording of one of the best shows that's out right now with Chad Ochocinco and the great Shannon Sharpe. But unfortunately, Ocho got caught up on some travel plans. So what we did, we pivoted. We're going to have Shannon Sharpe, of course, on stage, and he'll be joined by his longtime business partner, sports media executive Jamie Horowitz, for a great behind-the-scenes conversation about everything happening in the world of sports, including the Boston Celtics winning the NBA championship last night. For those of you who stayed up at 2:30 in the morning for Watch Tip, we appreciate you being here with us today. And let's kick off the day, shall we?
But stay tuned because afterwards, we've got an incredible lineup with special guests, unbelievable. Megan Rapinoe, Shannon Sharpe, Justin Jefferson, Chloe Kim, and more. And you, because you are the real stars. You create the energy. You come here, and we thank you. Download the app. That's a cheap commercial, but do download the app because it'll tell you what's going on the rest of the day until Thursday night. You're all welcome. We look forward to seeing you through the day. And now,
let's match David's energy, shall we? Come on, Sport Beach, make some noise. Let's give it up for Shannon Sharpe and Jamie Horowitz.
And Ben and I got to get out of here and give him back the torch.
Testing.
Good morning. Good morning. All right. So Shannon and I first had a chance to work together in 2015. He was a guest on a show on ESPN called First Take. He was, for those of you who might remember his appearances, he was spectacular on that show. And then a couple years later, we reunited at FS1. He was a co-host of a show called Undisputed. In 2023, he left Undisputed and he started Shay Media. And it's been an unbelievable start for this guy. He has 2 podcasts that are in the top 5 of all sports podcasts with, yes, good. Thank you and back. There we go. With Club Shay and NightCap with Chad Ochocinco. So I guess the first question, Shan, I think a lot of folks here would like to know is, how did you do it and how did you do it so fast?
Well, I think that's the biggest thing that people always ask, how did it happen so fast? It doesn't seem like it happened fast for me. We started Club Shay during the pandemic in September of 2020. We started NightCap last year, September of 2023. And I just, it's just a grind. It really is a grind. It's a process. I remember when my EP, CJ, who's the producer of Club Shay, we started out, we had like 20 subs, and I really didn't know what I was doing because he's like, do a podcast. Fox wanted me to do a podcast because there was no sports going on, and it was going to give people an opportunity to have something to watch, to be entertained. And I was like, well, how do we book guests? Obviously, you couldn't. Everything was going to be Zoom remote. And he's like, just go through your phone, and the most popular people that you have, call them and see if they'd come on. So that's what I did. I went to my phone, Ice Cube, Snoop Dogg, Floyd Mayweather, Master P, all the big names that I had in my phone. I reached out and said, bro, I'm starting a podcast, and I would greatly appreciate if you come on. And they did. It gave me the credibility to start, and we haven't looked back.
It's been an amazing run. If you're lucky to have seen it firsthand, yeah, give it up for Shannon for sure, for sure. I want to ask you about one podcast in particular. I bet this one comes up a lot. You can give it up if you've heard of this one. Shannon did a podcast with Katt Williams. Yeah, a few people heard of it. It was January 3rd, 2024, so about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
I want to read this. It currently has more than 70 million views. So to give you a perspective on that, that's bigger than any podcast that Joe Rogan has done, bigger than any podcast that Oprah has done. That gives you a sense of it. It's the single most consumed podcast ever put out on YouTube. That's Shannon and Katt Williams, and that was just in January. So this thing is still growing.
Right.
It's pretty amazing. I guess one thing I've always been curious about, now we look back on it, everyone's like, oh, of course that thing would pop off. When you were sitting with him that day, did you have a sense of how big it was going to be?
No. And I think if I look at it, put it in sports perspective, probably Wilt, when he got to the game and started playing, he didn't think he'd score 100 points. Or Kobe, rest his soul, he didn't think he'd have 81. You know, you sit down, you're doing the interview, you're talking. I mean, he's making points. I'm laughing because he's a comedian and he's saying things that are funny. And I just remember when we wrapped, my producer is sitting behind me, CJ, and as I turn around and look at him, he's shaking his head. And so now, naturally, I'm covering my mic because I think I've said something wrong or Katt said something wrong. We're going to have to ask him to sit back down, or we're going to have to edit it out. And so when I get over to him, I was like, what happened? What? He's like, this is gonna break the internet. He says, they're going to be talking about this not only for 24, but they're going to be talking about it for beyond. So I'm like, really? Because I was just hoping to get like 10, 15 million views. And I think most of you guys know YouTube. For someone to sit down and have a conversation, an interview, and you get 10 to 15 million views, that is a monster number. And so I remember we released everyone noon Eastern, and I see 10,000, I see 15, I see 20, 30, 40, 50. I see 125,000 watching it in a live chat simultaneous. And so I'm like, okay, this is going to be really, really good. But I'm still not thinking what it eventually got to. And I remember calling CJ. I would say, well, CJ, you think we're going to get 10 million? He's like, nah, we're going to do 20. I was like, oh, that's good. So I hung the phone up. The next day I call him, we're at 33 million. I was like, CJ, how many do you think we're actually going to get? He said, we'll do 50. He's like, there's really an outside chance we could break the record. So now I got to go see what the record is, and I think it's Joe Rogan at the time. He had like 68,400,000. And here we are, basically almost a week from 6 months, and we're at almost 71 million. So, no, I did not think. If somebody would have told me it would have done that, I wouldn't have believed him because I didn't think it was possible.
It's pretty incredible. The other thing that's, I think, amazing about Shannon, if I can brag on his behalf, is media is loosely divided between folks who are good at hosting and folks who tend to be good as opinionists, right? And I think if you watch Shannon in his NFL career through NFL films, you've seen him like mic'd up, and you have that like famous moment versus the Patriots, like calling the National Guard, is that right?
Right,
Yeah. And so everybody knew Shannon would be a great talker, a great opinionist. But what he's doing on Club Shay Shay is a very different thing, right? In that role, he's playing a host. And he's created this show where athletes, musicians, actors, they call him. They want to come on the program and talk to him. So I guess my question is, Shannon, what is your secret sauce that has sort of created this world as now a host, as an interviewer?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is that when I sit down with any guest, I haven't watched anything that they've done previously because I don't want to have any judgment. I don't want to have any predetermined ideas. I don't want to look at my guests with judgy eyes. They'll know if you're judging them, and they won't open up as much as you want them to. Also, when I pick guests, a lot of times people are like, well, who do you want on? someone that might be popular might not do the most views because they might not feel like sharing their story or be as interesting. I think the thing is, if you look at the people that do really well on Club Shay Shay as comedians, they're used to entertaining. They're used to telling stories. But for me, I always ask my guests, is there anything that you would not want to share or you don't want to talk about? Because the way I approach it, I believe the person that's sitting on my couch can tell their story without their most embarrassing moment being a part of it. And I think once they realize that, they'll open up and they'll go places they probably haven't or they didn't think they were going to go.
I think one of your other skills, you know, I've talked about a little bit, is watching Shannon. And I hope now when you go back and you watch him on Club Shay Shay, it's like honestly a TED Talk on how to be a good interviewer. Is the way you use the word yes, right? And that's obviously famous in improv. People always talk about yes and I just think you have sort of an inclination, no matter what they say, I always hear you go, yes, and then they say something they didn't expect they would say.
Yeah, I think the thing for me is that when I go on, I'm not trying to talk. I've heard my voice. I've done 2 episodes on First Take, Mondays and Tuesday. I've done probably 3 episodes of NightCap. So I've heard my voice. And I think my audience, viewing and listening, they want to hear the guest. So it doesn't do me any good to interrupt them or to cut them off or something like that. And that's why the interviews are so long, is because I give them an opportunity to freely speak. And so sometimes the conversation might take, 5 minutes. It might take, 10 minutes. But I want them to be uninterrupted. I want them to speak freely. I want them to make sure they've gotten everything off their mind with that topic, what we were talking about. And so when we move on, Dave's like, okay, I feel good with what I had to say.
You've had an amazing group of folks that have come through: Steve Harvey, Usher, Magic Johnson, Mike Tyson, among many others. Who's on the wish list? Who you want to book coming up?
Oprah, Tyler Perry, President Trump, President Biden. Dave Chappelle would probably be the first of the. I would like to have Dave Chappelle, Kevin Hart. It'd be very interesting because a lot of people haven't watched Club Shay Shay. They might be a little more guarded coming on, but I still believe that the people that I just mentioned, they have a very, very interesting story. So even if they were to be guarded, I feel that I can still extract some nuggets out of them that they probably haven't shared before or they haven't shared in a very long time.
Let's talk about your other hit show, NightCap.
Yes.
It's pretty amazing. For those of you who haven't seen it, it comes on often after NFL games or NBA games. Theoretically, you're there to talk about that night's sports, but it goes in some wild directions. Your producer, Ashley, is sitting here today. Well, there you go. Give it up for Ashley. Thank you. And it's with, of course, Chad Ochocinco.
Yes.
You guys have developed this sort of unbelievable chemistry. It's as much as I think I'm impressed with the rise of Club Shay Shay, you launched NightCap in September. In 4 months, it had 1 million subscribers. Mm-hmm. That is so hard to do. These things take time.
They do.
Right? One of the things we always talk about when you and I are recruiting new talent is it's all about the grind.
Yes.
You can't rush the process. Mm-hmm. And then they'd be like, well, I don't know, Shannon got to 1 million in 4 months. Doesn't seem that hard. It just moves. Why did that show pop off so fast?
Because I think we're both relatable. Obviously, we both know the game of football. We both played at a very high level. But I think the thing is relatability. Because you're talking about 2 guys that, they played professional football, but the stories that we tell, it's like, man, that happened to him? Man, I know it happened to me. It happened to my homeboy. So that makes us like, wow, they're just one of the guys that just happened to play a professional sport. And I remember when you and I was talking about putting this show together, it was only supposed to be a 20-minute show after Sunday, Monday, and Thursday night games. On Sundays and Sundays, we're going to pick 2 other games, the most important games of the day, and we're going to discuss those. And so the first, I just felt that me being the storyteller that I am and Ocho being the personality that he is, I felt that we could get the point across. We could share something that would really resonate with our fans. And that's what happened. An opportunity came up for me to tell a story. I shared that story, and the chat went crazy, and it's like, this is the podcast we didn't know we needed, and everything took off from there. But Ocho is the perfect He's the perfect yin to my yang. I'm his, yang to his yin. We understand each other because when you and I was talking, I said we need to get somebody that doesn't take himself too serious. We can make fun of each other without someone taking it serious. We don't have to question each other's ability. We did what we did. We can't go back and add any more catches or yards. And so I think that's why it works, because he gets me, I get him. I understand that 92% of the time he wants to be silly, and I let him.
I think one of the coolest things that you guys did just happened a couple weeks ago with Monica McNutt.
Yes.
And I think, that the power of that moment, I think, is really, it's illustrative of sort of the power of digital media
Yes.
versus linear television.
Correct.
And also probably showcases you as a producer. Can you kind of take us through that day, starting with First Take and what happened?
Well, we had found out, I think, that night before that Caitlin Clark did not make the U.S. women's national team, the Olympic team that's headed to Paris to compete for the gold medal. And so the topic was, should she have been on the team? Now, if we're talking strictly ability, probably not. But for an opportunity to grow the game, I felt she should have been on the team. And so, obviously, Monica played college ball at Georgetown. She follows the WNBA. She does a real good job. She talks about men's game, and she can talk about the women's game. So her and I had different of opinions. Her and Stephen A. had a very, very differing of opinions. But on ESPN, I'm talent. So obviously, you got to understand that we got the top of the hour, we got the bottom of the hour, we got commercials. And so at that moment, I remember talking to Ash, and I was like, you know what? We probably should ask her to come on, because in this platform, because now she can explain the nuances of what went into selecting the team, the nuances of how women and the women that are on the team is more so than having played together. It's more so of the women that gave up a lot of their summers to go play international basketball. So I wanted her to have an opportunity to discuss those nuanced conversations that we weren't able to get in on First Take. And so she came on. She did an unbelievable job. We had another conversation about a flagrant foul that Kennedy Carter had on her, and then Shanae Abumake, she came on and discussed that. I invited her back on NightCap later that night, because a lot of these conversations are a lot more nuanced than just this or that. And so I wanted those women who do an excellent job every time they're on to have that nuanced conversation, because this was going to be a different audience. A lot of these people that was watching my show probably didn't see NightCap, but I wanted them to have a very nuanced conversation and have the opportunity to hear a woman's perspective. Shanae played in the WNBA. She was the #1 overall draft pick. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think she was Rookie of the Year. So obviously she has a vested interest. She really wants to grow the game. So does Monica McNutt, and I felt I owed them that, to have them on a very popular pod so they could share their opinion.
There's obviously a place for both linear television and digital, and you've obviously continued to have success on both First Take and these podcasts. But do you think sort of what your story with Monica shows, that digital creates an opportunity for you to do something different, get a little more freedom?
It does. It does. And I think that's what NightCap allows us to do. I mean, we get to have conversations that there's no chance we're going to have that conversation on linear television. We're probably not going to have that conversation until we have that conversation, because it normally comes on around 10:30, 11 o'clock Eastern time, p.m. So it allows us a lot more freedom and a lot more an opportunity to go in different places that you probably wouldn't be able to go. But it allows me to show a different side. I have to be Shannon Sharpe, but I have to have a personality on First Take, one on Club Shay, and one on NightCap. In the process of doing that, I have to be each personality while staying true to Shannon. And all those people that you see are a part of me at different times. So you see the First Take Shannon, you see the NightCap Shannon, you see the Club Shay Shannon. I'm all those people, just at different times.
All right, the NBA Finals ended a couple hours ago. I don't know how many people stayed up for that one. I'm going to ask you for your take on that in a second. But first, I want to ask you something a little bit more wonky about sports media that certainly I think we've both observed through the years. I think for audience, sometimes they want football opinions from former football players, and they want basketball opinions from former basketball players. I don't know why that is, but that is. They just associate with, hey, you played the game. I only want your take in that space.
Correct.
And they don't give the former athlete permission to have expertise in a sport other than the one they played in.
Right.
You are one of only a handful of folks who somehow broke that mold. Somehow you're an NFL Hall of Famer, and people come to you for your takes on the NBA, often specifically for LeBron takes, but all NBA takes.
Yeah.
How'd you pull that off?
Well, a lot of work. What I tell guys that want to get in this space, especially if you want to do a first take or undisputed or something of that nature, you basically have to give up your life, because every sporting event that comes on, you need to watch it. And I think early on they could tell, because I could recall a play and I didn't need graphics. I could recall a play in my mind and says, okay, you remember that play in the second quarter with 2 minutes and 30 seconds left? This, and this happened. And I was like, they put the guy in this spot over here when they should have. And so guys like, man, he's really watching the game. The fans can tell who watched the game. They can tell who's like the game is important to them enough and not just watch highlights and form an opinion off of highlights. They know that I don't watch with sound. So whatever you hear me saying, I'm saying it. That's what I believe. That's my opinion. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong, but that's the way I saw the game. And so when you guys were doing the focus group at Fox, yeah, when that news came back to me that people value my opinion more in basketball than they do football, I was like, well, damn, I'm doing something wrong in football.
All right, since you are a resident basketball expert, give the people just 90 seconds here. What did you make of this NBA final? All these blowouts? What did you make of it all?
Yeah. Congratulations to the Boston Celtics. To Jaylen Brown, Finals MVP. Think about it. He won the Larry Bird Trophy for the Eastern Conference MVP. He won the Bill Russell, two great Celtics Finals MVP. He had an unbelievable season. He had an unbelievable playoff run, and I think he was very, very deserving of both of those awards. Yeah, I just think the thing is for, like, Dallas, in order for them to win that series, Kyrie was going to have a Game 5 game throughout the entirety of the series. And it didn't go that way. Luka, because, see, Jason Tatum can play bad, and then you still have Jaylen Brown. You still have Holiday. You still have Derek White. You still have Porzingis that would come in and he could give you anywhere between 10 and 20 points in the game. So if one of the big two from the Dallas Mavericks didn't play good, well, it was going to end up like it did, end up being a blowout. And so I think that was probably the most disappointing thing. I know Kyrie wanted to play better. Obviously a team that he spent 2 seasons with, but it just wasn't to be. Boston, I think people looking at Boston like, y'all got lucky. Joel Embiid was hurt. Tyrese Halliburton got hurt. Jalen Brunson got hurt. Julius Randle was already hurt. Giannis, Dame was hurt. Jimmy Butler got hurt. They're like, well, how many breaks can you get? The Celtics like, we can just play who we play when we play them. That trophy is not going to have any of the things that I just mentioned on it. They're the champs. They earned it, and we'll see what happens next year this time. But they get 4 or 5 months to celebrate this victory.
For sure. All right, let's talk brands for a second, since we're around a lot of brands here. I know you brought your longtime agent Jamie Fritz is here. Your CRO Dan Agard is here. You guys are taking lots of different meetings with brands this week. You did a really interesting execution a couple weeks ago. I know Danielle Mischer over at Sony, the CMO of Sony Pictures, worked with you guys to do something with Bad Boys that looked pretty innovative. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, they reached out and wanted to be a part. They see what we were doing and the engagement that we have with NightCap. Sometimes anywhere between 50 and 100,000 fans on a live chat, and our fans are engaging. They're asking, they're commenting, and they're asking questions and things of that nature. And all of a sudden now we got Will Smith and Martin Lawrence on our screen, and we're asking them questions, and they're like, "Man, this is really, really cool." Who'd ever thought that Shannon Sharpe and Ocho Cinco would actually be interviewing 2 of the biggest stars in Hollywood, Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, for Bad Boy 4 Ride or Die? Congratulations to them. #1 at the box office, over 100 million opening weekend. That franchise now over $1 billion totally in box office. But it was unbelievable, and to see our fans like commenting 2,000-3,000 comments about how cool it is to see Will Smith and Martin Lawrence on NightCap, and Ocho and Unc are having a conversation with them. So that's something hopefully we can do. Hopefully brands saw that, and they were like, okay, we want to be a part of that also. But it was very, very cool, something that we didn't even think was possible, but now we know it's possible. The sky's the limit.
I know one of the best parts of sort of Club Shay and NightCap is the personal relationship you seem to have with the fans now, right?
Yeah.
It feels a lot more one-to-one. The best way, of course, is to go out and literally meet them. I think Audrey's here, who helped put together a live tour that's coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, we all kick off the live tour. Starts August 22nd in Atlanta. Sold out show already. And basically, we sold that show out in a week. Then we travel that Sunday, the 25th, to Houston, Texas. I think we have like 5 tickets left in that one. And then Dallas the following Friday, which is, I think, August the 30th, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that show just sold out as of this morning. So 2 of the 3 shows sold out. I think we have a couple of single tickets left at Houston. But it's been an unbelievable. And that's something that we wanted to do. Ocho and I both wanted to get out and be amongst the fans. Instead of just, being confined in our spaces where we normally would shoot the show, we wanted to get out, get an opportunity to be with the fans, to do some meet and greets, and to show the fans that we really appreciate this, because none of this is possible without you guys.
When I'll get you out of here on this one, but when you and I first met forever ago, I don't know, 2014 or something like that.
Yeah.
One of the things you had asked me at the time, you had said you're always getting advice on who you should be on TV, right? Everyone's saying, oh, you should do more of this, less of that. And I think I said to you at the time, just be more you, right? Lean into exactly who you are. You're already a captivating personality. Don't put on some fake bit, for TV. And one of the many things I always loved about you is your signature phrases. Mm-hmm. And we often see in the chat people like saying them back to you, never mistake, habit for hard work,
yes,
and a bunch of other ones. If you could just share with folks here today, maybe some of them, and then for me, maybe explain what they actually mean.
Well, that's probably the one that you just mentioned, because my grandfather used to tell my brother that all the time, never mistake habit for hard work. He used to tell us, just because you do something over and over doesn't mean you're working hard. And growing up on a farm in rural South Georgia in the 70s, hard work was something that I didn't shy away from. And I understood, having all the odd jobs that I had, it let me realize what I didn't want to do when I got older. Because if that was back-breaking work as a child, can you imagine trying to do that same type of labor in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s? And I didn't want any part of that. So I always took that. I always understood that just because I do something every single day, I ask myself a very simple question. Am I working hard, or is this a habit that I have to do? One of my promises, my grandma used to say, boy, promises like pie crust, thin and easily broken. And that's when, people tell you anything, oh, I promise I'm going to do this. And the next thing you know, they've broken it. I hate that. If you want to do something, just do it. If you don't, I get it. And I'm one of those guys, I'm like, give me a little more time, because I hate to try to commit to something 2 months in advance. And when it comes around here, I got to try to think of a lie to get out of it. So I just like, you just give me some time. Give me a couple of weeks. I want to make sure that I'm still feel the same way that I want to go then as I do now. So that's another one. And then what's one of my favorites?
What's the grass?
Oh,
one?
yeah. Like when I get a prediction right, I'm quick to tell you when I get a prediction right, the score or who's going to win the game. I say, if I tell you grass will turn to cheese, quit your job and start hustling crackers. Y'all know how much grass is in the world. So if I tell you something, whatever you do and how much money you make, quit that, start hustling crackers. You'll be more wealthy taking to my takes.
And what's the cat one?
I'm too big of a cat to be played with like a kitten. Sometimes people be playing, and y'all know how I am. You follow me. I don't do all the games. I ain't all about that keying and all that playing. Don't play with me. You play with kittens. You don't play with cats. You don't see people playing with lions. They pick up a little kitten and say, oh, you so cute and cuddly. I ain't that guy. I don't do that.
All right, my man. We're at time. Thank you guys for having us on. Good to meet you all.
Thank you so much for showing up. Thank you all my fans that watch Club Shay NightCap, supported me from day one, from CBS to Undisputed to now ESPN. Guys, thank you so much. Shannon Sharpe doesn't exist without all of you. Thank you.